All right, guys, welcome to the Cold Deck Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Miles, aka Polarizing Chris, and I have a super special guest with me. Not only is he a super crusher, both live and online, but he's also starting a movement with something called the Nit Campaign, which I'm absolutely a huge fan of. And we'll get into that in just a second here, but been wanting to do this for a long time. I'm excited to get you on here, and why don't you tell a little bit of people about what you're all about?
Awesome. Yeah. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Kenny, but on social media and everything, I go by Global Kenny Poker. Kind of started playing poker a couple years ago. And initially, I was just playing, just grinding 1-3. And eventually, I kind of saw like some of the content creators coming up, just like the smaller short form content creators and just thought I'd give it a shot. So about, I would say like a year and a half ago or so, I started posting like Instagram Reels, TikToks, YouTube Shorts, things like that. Still doing it now, but yeah, that's a little bit about me.
It's awesome. No, I mean, I always love bringing on people who are obsessed with the game, and I can tell, like you and your brother, you guys have dove full blown into that poker lifestyle, which is pretty awesome to see. Because I was about the same age when I discovered the game. I was like 21, 22, but I didn't really start taking it seriously until maybe I was like 27, 28 when I
Yeah,
actually like started studying and all those things. It was like just for fun. It was just a gamble with my buddies, go to the casino, drop a few $100, right? Maybe we win dinner money or club money, right? We're like, hey, we're gonna all go out with a couple $100 each, that kind of thing. But you guys have taken it in a whole different direction real early on. You guys are creating this movement. Tell me about the anti-Nit campaign. What is that, and where did that idea come from?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of been something that's like in our blood, I think. So like ever since we started playing poker, ever since me and my brother started playing poker, because we started playing basically at the same time. And I think that also is kind of what's contributed to our growth in a short period of time. It's just like we're super, super fucking competitive. And like I'm always trying to beat him. He's always trying to beat me. We're always just trying to one up each other in everything we do. Um, but basically, when we both started playing, we were both like very, very active players at the table, like always playing lots of hands, high VPIP, high three bet. That's kind of like how we started playing. And that was like we just kind of figured that that strategy worked the best early on at like 1-3, 1-2. This is way before studying. This is way before we were actually good at all at the game. But that was just the strategy and I guess methodology that we used to play poker. And we thought it worked really well. And we just really didn't like playing with people that were nitty, people that, did that never
Nobody
played
does.
hands, OMCs, right? Um, and we just started the movement. It was called Anti-Nit Campaign. Like we would kind of like if you go back to like our super old Instagram videos and like TikTok videos, you will see us like have like Anti-Nit Campaign tags like all the way from way back when. And this is before this was ever a thing. We were just saying it back then just because we thought it was hilarious. And eventually it got to the point where it kind of caught on a little bit and we started, so I started like a merch brand. We started a merch brand for it. And then now we even have a school community, which is called Anti-Knit Academy. It's kind of like a spin-off of Anti-Knit Campaign, but
Yeah.
all around the same brand, just like no knits, you know what I mean?
I love that you guys chose the school platform because, like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, and they like started their own school communities. And I was kind of like, well, how can I tie that into poker? And it's brilliant that you guys moved it, and you're like, hey, it's a educational thing, but it's also you're building a community. It's more of like a place where like-minded people can share ideas and get better and talk hands and talk shit too. I mean, that's part
Yeah.
of the game as well, And like, look at these fucking fish; they're terrible, right? But that's pretty cool. Like I saw that, I saw what you guys are building, and I mean, you guys are just getting started. Like, I mean, I really believe that. I'm a big fan, and I'm just excited to see the game grow with the younger. I'm sitting here talking like I'm 50, but I'm 36. I'm turning
Yeah.
37 in a couple weeks, and I'm like, damn, I'm old. I've been playing for how long now? This is terrible. Um, no, it's pretty awesome. What made you start want to make content? Like, where did that all come from? Because I mean, you blew up pretty fast. You went, I remember like not even that long ago, you were at like 10, 12, then it was like 20, then it was 30, and you're climbing. So what kind of started that whole, let's make a bunch of content?
Yeah. So it's actually a funny story. So I was playing poker at the time already. And I was just a regular 1-3 grinder back at this point. I'm just playing like every day. This is my main source of income. I'm just grinding 1-3. Um, but I had a roommate, like I was living, this was during college. So like I was living with one of my roommates for like the longest time. And then we actually had someone move in with us. That was also from my school, UC Davis. His name's Brian. And he was actually like super famous on TikTok just for like funny skits and just comedy content, really. Just from way back when. He also played poker as well. So he was kind of like the one that kind of pushed me. He was like, you should make poker content. Like I think it would be sick. Like no one's really doing it on Instagram. This is back when really no one was posting shorts. Not many people were posting shorts at all.
Yeah.
So it's like very unsaturated market. Like you look at today and now there's just tons of people that are doing it. Just like it's a lot harder to get started now, but back then it was very, very like unsaturated. And he was kind of like the first one that brought it to my attention. He was like, look, like you play a shit ton of poker. Why don't you just, film and post it? I guarantee you'll, get some followers. So I started doing that for a little bit. And I mean, honestly, the thing is, it just picked up so fast that that's kind of what kept me motivated. It was just like, oh, things are working out really well. Like, I don't know if things had worked out really slow and it took like hundreds of videos for me to get like 1,000 followers if I would still be doing this. But back then it was just like a very easy market and no one was doing it. So when he kind of brought that to my attention, I posted a couple videos and they kind of blew off. And I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, one thing I really like about your content is it's not like anyone else's. Because like the biggest annoyance to me is going and seeing on YouTube, there's 100,000 vloggers for poker. It's like
Yeah.
oh, here's another poker vlogger. And it was I for the longest time I was hoping someone would start making something different, something that was like, I mean, I have a short attention span. I self-proclaimed ADD or whatever. So it's like seeing something in 30 seconds to a minute, but I get the same kind of information that I would have in like a 20-minute boring ass vlog going over hand histories. I'm a fan. I was like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Then you throw in like I was looking through some of your content not that long ago, and just like I love how you were showcasing like, hey, this week as a professional poker player, and you showed the wins and the losses. And I think that's also super important because everyone thinks it's super glamorous, right? The cliche is like, oh, you're a pro poker player. Life must be amazing. You must be rich and this. And you're like,
Yeah.
no, there's good days and bad days. If someone's winning 10 out of 10 times, they're flat out lying to you, which is what poker Instagram used to be. That's
Yeah.
like, here's my chip porn. Here's my, I'm winning all the time. And then you're like, yeah, but I just saw you stack off against a guy and you didn't post that. Who, like, what's that? Right. So, I mean, it's something that's been needed in the community for a long time. And I just love how real you keep it. And, like I said, I think the Nit Campaign, it's the perfect name. I used to have a saying, don't be a nit bitch. That was like, I had old videos years ago. I used to say it on streams on Live at the
Yeah.
Bike. And I got in trouble because they're like, you can't call that guy a nit bitch. I'm like, but he is a nit bitch. Like, that's what he's being. He's not playing hands. He's waiting for monsters. And it's like, cool, go play in the main game outside. Don't jump on a poker stream where people are looking to be entertained, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people are getting behind. So I mean, how are things going with the community, with the academy? Excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, this is all pretty new stuff. Like, I think in terms of the academy, we must have started it within the past few months, like maybe 3 months ago. And we're doing well. A lot of our students at this point in time are just like seeing really good results with what we're trying to teach and with kind of what we're preaching out here. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, like with coaching. It's like if people within the community are finding success, you know what I mean? I think that's just incredible. Like I feel like it almost feels better for me, like when somebody within our community is making these massive wins as opposed to when I'm winning. You know what I mean? I think it's
Yeah.
honestly cooler because like I'm feeling like they're applying the concepts that we're trying to teach them, and it's absolutely helping them a lot. So yeah, I think the academy will only grow. That's the biggest thing. I think it's still new in a way. Like we haven't been around the block for a long time. Like there's other, communities, coaching platforms that have been around for like 20 years.
Sure.
Um, and for the majority of those, they're all coaches that are very, very well respected within the industry and people that, have millions and millions of dollars in earnings. And I think it's pretty cool for, someone that's playing 1-2 or 1-3, 2-5 to like learn from somebody else that's grinding, 5-10 and actually crushing these stakes because a lot of times when you look at the Chance Cornice, the Jonathan Littles of the world,
Yep.
they're crushing the super, super high stakes out there. So obviously I have a ton of respect for those guys, but they're some of what they teach and some of what they're, I guess, like applying in game isn't really something that is always going to apply to like a 2-5 cash game. You know what I mean? So
Very
we
different.
really try to keep our community, like our community is focused around low to mid stakes cash game crushing, like crushing those stakes. And that's what we will always focus on. So hopefully, that continues to grow, more members and more success stories as well.
It's funny because one of your posts, actually, you've had a few posts where you're like, I shouldn't be sharing this with you guys, but here's how you crush these. And I was like, shut up, Kenny, shut up, dude. Don't tell them how to play the game. Like, we need those fish in the game. No, I think those are like really cool, different types of videos because it's not BS advice. Like, I started listening. I was like, okay, this is when I started to really respect you and your brother more as players. Like, especially you, like, I just see you grinding more cash. I mean, I don't know if that's the same with your brother Danny, but it seems like he's more tournament. You're a little bit more cash, although you play tournaments. I saw his YouTube video, and which is insane. I can't even imagine like how much fun that was to grind that Oceans tournament, and for him to take it down is just
Yeah.
awesome to see. Like, did he? I mean, he was documenting that whole thing. I can't imagine you guys are thinking like, oh yeah, we're just going to casually go in here and take it down and create a YouTube video out of it. Like, I mean, like how do you guys even plan for that? But what's the goal with the academy? So now that you have things rolling, you have students in there, you're posting people's results. You're like, hey, they're actually working hard and getting something out of this. What's the goal? Are you trying to grow it to 500 members, 1,000 members? Like, what's kind of the goal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if there's like a member specific goal, like in terms of like how much we want. Because for me, right, I think in terms of just anybody, like we'll always take on somebody that's willing to, work and that wants to get better at the game. Because I think that's the most valuable thing, right? Like in poker, um, the only way you're ever gonna get better is if you really fucking want to get better and you really want to study and you really like care about the game, you love the game.
Mm,
You're not gonna get better if you know you don't love it that much or you don't want to study. So we'll always, be looking to get more members that have that mindset. And I think that's the cool part is we're building this community, right, with everybody that thinks the same way. Like me and Daniel alike, like we're just like the other guys in the community. Like we might know a little bit more at this point in our careers, but we're the same way. Like we haven't reached the heights of poker yet where we're playing, 10K high rollers, like Triton stuff. Or, buying into Hustler 5100 games. We're just like everybody else, grinding like mid-ish high stakes right now. And just like trying to get better along with everybody else. So in terms of goals, one of the things that we really had in mind was we want to bring on a couple other big name creators out there. If you're familiar with a few guys, but we want to bring on a few more coaches at some point, or coaches slash, mentors in our community. So
hmm
that's kind of the immediate goal, like not in terms of members, but maybe having some more guys in the community that are able to like teach. So that's something that we're looking forward to doing.
That's awesome. See that gets someone like me excited because I know at the end of the day what you're ultimately doing is growing the game. You're getting more people involved. I feel like we're really close to another big poker boom. I'm still shocked that online poker isn't technically legal. Let's be real. We all play on the same sites, Ignition,
Yeah.
ACR, right? Global, all those things. Clubs Poker, shout out to Clubs Poker. Um,
Yes, sir.
but and I'm going to throw in, I'll have this thing edited where we got like commercials throughout and all that thing. So I'll get into that in a second. I'm actually really excited about clubs and what they're trying to do, because I'm a big fan of however you can get more people involved in online poker, and the fact that it's legal and it's using the sweeps model. And it's like everyone goes, I don't know about that. I'm like, no, I looked into it. This is legit. It can't be shut down. It's legal in 45 states. This is actual online poker back in the US.
Hmm.
So, but again, we all play on all the sites. And I think it's interesting that we don't have anyone trying to legalize it still. Like sports betting got super big over the last 5 years. COVID was the best thing to ever happen to sports betting. And then once it was legalized in pretty much everywhere, except for California still, which is stupid. Um, that's a whole nother topic. It just took off. And you have ESPN Bet, you have DraftKings, you have FanDuels, and all these things. Why do we not have legalized online poker? Why is that still not widespread, right? We have sites attempting to do it, Clubs Poker, Global. We have all these sites trying to figure out ways to get players involved legally, but there needs to be more availability. There needs to be more competition because it drives everyone up. I mean, you were definitely too young for the Full Tilt and the Poker Stars days when it was legal in the US. But let me tell you, from 2006, when I started playing, to 2011, that was, you want to talk about the easiest games of your entire life? You want to talk about people making moves you would never see today? It was like that every single day. It was an ATM machine. You're just printing money, print, print, print. And then out of nowhere, Black Friday happens. And it was literally like the poker world died that day. For 6 months, games were non existent in a lot of card rooms. People had lost their savings, their houses, their livelihood, their families, right? It was a scary time. Then like 2013, 2014, it started kind of making a comeback. And then now we see it where it's kind of a wide open landscape. We have the unregulated sites, and then we have these sites that are trying to tiptoe around the law. But like, you're like me, I'm a live poker player. I love chips in my hand. I love being around people. And there's something about being in a card room on a Friday night, hearing all those chips clacking, you're just starting the session, it's like, that gets me fired up. That's
Yeah.
really hard to do online. It's just not the same. So, but I love what you guys are doing. I think you're bringing a lot more people to online, and obviously people are using it live. I saw some of the testimonials, the results on there that you guys posted, which was super sick. So,
Yeah.
um, what would you say though is like, when did it start clicking for you? When did you go from, I'm in school and I'm playing part time and this is kind of for fun, to then it get more serious, and then when you made the decision to do this full time? What was that like? What was that journey like?
Yeah. Kind of, I don't know. It's been a wild journey, obviously. Like just I feel like every step of the journey has been pretty crazy, but honestly, I'm kind of lucky. When I first started playing, there's this little 1-2 game. It was like a 1-2 200 max buy-in game up in Sacramento, right next to where I went to college. And that was pretty much where I played literally every single day during college. I was the biggest grinder of that game of all time. Pretty much, that's where I learned to play poker. And if that game didn't exist, I wouldn't be playing poker because the 1-3 at the time was just too big. So I grinded that 1-2 game, and honestly, the reason that I continued to play is like no one's gonna continue to really play if they keep getting shit on, right? They keep losing. Like, I mean, it's tough to enjoy, especially as a college student. Like, I didn't have that kind of money to like go out and lose, right? So I got really lucky in a way where ever since the very beginning, I was always winning. I was always winning. Maybe it wasn't much, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it was a couple bucks an hour at first. But I was never like really just in the shit or just getting losing, right? So initially I kind of had some positive variance and like was able to sort of build a bankroll just off running good basically and just natural ability.
That helps.
And exactly, right? Like that's a lot of how you get a start. You know what I mean? Like if that had went wrong, maybe it takes me like 6 more months at my job to like build my bankroll back up, and then now I have to like go back and try again, right? But
Yeah.
in the very beginning, like I obviously like I think like a lot of my success has been luck from the very beginning, like at least early on. you need some of that positive variance to go your way, just so you can get the ball rolling, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then kind of like once I played that game for like 6 months, I started to build a bankroll and play 1-3. And this is where I started to take things a little bit more seriously during college, because the 1-3 games, I don't know if you're like familiar with them in Sacramento, but basically that is the higher ish stakes in Sacramento because there aren't
Sure.
really bigger games than 1-3 because the 1-3 is just an uncapped 1-3 pretty much. So it's usually just the biggest game that runs at like the main rooms. So that's when I started to actually take things seriously. Is like when I'm like playing 1-3, like now I've got like, you know, anywhere from like buying in from anywhere from $500 to $1,000. So it's like much more significant amount of money to me. And at this point in time, like now, even as a part-time side hustle thing, I'm making more off this than I was making off my, job, which was also a part-time job as well. So one second, kind of.
So you weren't even like that committed to the job anyways. You're
Yeah.
like, it's part-time.
Once,
Oh, you having some internet
let me
issues?
see. I think yeah, I'm gonna grab a better charger or
Or is it
something.
dying?
Let me see.
That's the joys of recording. We could always just edit this part out. Where did we leave off? I don't even. I got so distracted.
I think we were
Oh,
leaving off at yeah,
what?
like journey, right?
Yes, your journey, like how you started getting more serious about the game. What did you use to start studying? Like, what are your tools?
Yeah, I mean, so I started studying. I mean, honestly, like I was never really a big studier, so I'm not gonna act like I was like, especially early on, like I didn't really study at all.
We have a lot in common.
But kind of as things progressed, I started to get into tournaments, right? This happened like maybe around a little over a year ago, maybe like 15 months ago or so. I played my first like live tournament that was like anything reasonable of a buy-in. I think it was like $400 or something. Um, and when I had played the tournament, there was a player that I was playing with, and I just realized that he was way better than me at the game. And like up until that point, when I was playing 1-3 cash for the most part, I never really felt that way where someone could just run over me like this guy was doing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I kind of felt inclined to study after that. I was like, shit, like, well, if guys can be this good, they're clearly probably doing something that I'm not. So I get into, so I start like watching more YouTube videos of like tournament players and stuff like that. And what I found in common with basically a majority of the really successful tournament players is they all basically study GTO. So that's kind of what sparked my interest in it, or at least gave me like the little kick on the butt. Hey, buddy, you gotta go study GTO if you want to compete with these guys at the next level. So um, initially, right, like I basically only used the GTO wizard, and just kind of like studied my ranges and stuff for tournaments, and eventually kind of just progressed into like finding very niche educational creators on YouTube and watching them like kind of like their thought process, and also like a lot of them will like go into GTO and like actually show you the different outputs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that that was very helpful. That's one of the ways I study. But yeah, like just GTO wizard as like my main tool for studying, and then I watch a lot of content too. Like I watch final tables. I watch like really good online poker players play, like on tough sites, tough regulated
Yep.
games and stuff like that. And I think that that's a really good way to study as well.
I mean, those are all solid points. I would say it's interesting because I've always been told, like, don't watch the fancy final tables of the high rollers, like the Triton or the super high roller bowls. It's like, don't watch those because they're playing on level 10 when you should be learning how to play on level 1 and 2 and 3 first. Like, but it's that kind of speaks to the level of your talent, of like you were able to pick up things early in your career, and then as you're progressing, you're like, I'm understanding these concepts because of a program like a GTO Wiz, where it's like that's a whole other conversation I want to get into with you, is like your thoughts on these tools and RTA, and we'll get into that. But like, it's one thing to have a GTO as account or an HRC account or these other tools, these learning tools, but it's another thing to actually know how to use them properly. Because I know a lot of
Yeah.
people I'll talk to and like, oh yeah, I'm on GTO Wiz, and then they'll tell me what they're doing. I'm like, you're not even using it right. Like you're not studying the spots correctly, and you're picking up bad habits and you're hurting your game because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And so
Yeah.
that's always been my fear is like, I have a coach, I have someone I'm working with that just was, and they're like a beyond super crusher in the mid. I mean, they're making 300,000 just online. They only play online. They only play tournaments. And learning from someone who approaches the game a certain way and approaches it like a business is how I related, because I come from a business background. I come from a sales and marketing background. So it's like to have someone break it down for me, it made way more sense. GTO Wiz was like another language. I turned that on for the first time and I'm like, what am I looking at? What made it simplified was the trainer, the drills. Like that was easy. It's like, oh, it's like a video game. I'm literally playing spots that I ran into online. I love this. So I became obsessed with drilling spots and just like, okay, you're 10 big BBs effective. Like it's the final table. Like, are you pushing? Are you shoving? Are you folding? Like where are we at right here? And just over and over, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times until it became more automatic. And I see my game elevated because of that, where I didn't know what to do. Like I just was like, okay, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time. So I mean, that's interesting where you're like, I'm just going to jump into these tools and then I'm also going to watch these final tables. What you find out is you're like, oh, I was practicing that spot on GTO Wiz and he just pulled it off. Like, so the stuff works. It definitely works. But what would you say? What's your balance on like playing versus studying? What are you doing right now?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like I'm mostly play, in terms of like what type of volume I'm putting in. Like I'm probably averaging around like anywhere from 45 to 50 hours a week of playing, like just straight up playing poker. That's like online plus live cash, and live cash is obviously like where like 90% of my volume is put in. So majority live cash. And generally speaking, like every single session or every single time I go play, I'll always write down. It's like I'll always write down a couple of the hands that I played in that session that I thought I got tricked, or like maybe it was a spot that I was a little bit unsure of or just wanted to double check. And like with that, like I'll take that back and then like run it through GTO Wizard first. That's like one of the things that I'll do. And then like I'll send it to a couple friends, because like what people often do wrong is like they look at the GTO Wizard output and they're like, this is like I played it fine. You know what I mean? But like
Right.
you can't just trust a program like so in depth where you're like, okay, like you're gonna treat it like God in a way, like
Yeah.
where what you did was 100% valid because it's valid in GTO. Like you also have to consider, how people are playing and like how to exploit them and things like that. So
Mm.
I look at GTO and like I use that as a baseline, and I'm like, okay, well, what I did today was incorrect in theory, right? Like in GTO, in a GTO world, if everybody I'm playing is a fucking bot, then I shouldn't have done that, right? Um, and then I'll like actually send those hands to other players that I think are really, really good as well, and like that think about the game in a way that I think they approach the game really well, and like I'll send them the hand also, and like kind of just discuss the spot with them. So that way I'm getting like feedback from people that I think are very good at the game, and then also feedback from like a solver as well. And then just kind
Yeah.
of like mesh the two and just be like, okay, like my friends are saying this, the solver is saying this, but overall the like what you take away from that like entire experience is you just understand the spot better, right? You understand the spot in a theory perspective, but you also understand the spot in a way like how others would actually play that spot that are good players. So like if you can kind of mesh the two and like find harmony in that, because I don't think just going back and just looking at the solver all day is gonna help you that much. Like it will a little, but it's not gonna make your game. It's not gonna really improve your game that much, as opposed to like actually getting like different feedback from multiple sources. And solver is only one source, so
I would say you're spot on with that. And it's so refreshing to hear someone speak like that, because that's been the controversy for a few years. It's like, oh, everything has to be GTO. If you don't do it, you're a fish. If you're not playing this way, you're 5 years behind. These stupid nonsense statements. And then the real people who are winning, who are out there actually crushing games, yes, you're using GTO as a fundamental baseline, but
Yeah.
you're not basing every single life decision on it. And you know what I mean? And if you are, and then you can justify why you lost. That's what I see a lot of players do. They're like, well, the solver said this. It's like, I don't give a fuck what the solver said. The guy was shoving with any two cards. You fucking call him with aces. Like, you
Mhm.
call him with king 10 suited because you're crushing him. Like there's spots where you can deviate from those things and it makes way more sense and it's way more profitable. So I think that goes to show like you're practicing that now. You're like, hey, like I recognize spots based off of experience and GTO. So I mean that's big. What do you think? What would you say right now though? What are the things that you think are missing from the game right now? What do you think is like as you're progressing through your journey, what do you think would help grow the game, or what do you think is missing right now? And that could be anything. That could be, online live, it could be tournaments, it could be streaming, it could be whatever. Like what do you think is missing?
I mean, I think one thing that I'll go back to a lot is like you touched on it a little bit, like Full Tilt and like some of those big sites back in the day. Like I would love obviously to see not even of that. Like I would love to see a quarter of that, a third, or like a tenth of that in today's age. Like just like somewhere where people are playing like heavily online, right? Like we have some sites that are unregulated, regulated, blah blah blah. But I don't think any particular online platform is like crushing it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like everybody has a little share of the market right now, and everybody's competing in a way where I think we kind of just need to find like I guess the front runner. Like we need somebody that's just going to front run the online poker space to basically bring it back to somewhere where everybody is super stoked to go play online. Like I get fired up to go play live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm fired up to go play live poker. Like there's I feel like live poker is kind of booming right now in a way. Like there's always games, like at least in California, like there's always good games. There's always games everywhere. Um, and online poker obviously has taken like the down route. Like it's not as booming right now. So I think like one of the things that would potentially help is just like one of the platforms really becoming like a dominant force in the industry. Because I feel like right now, if you look at like the big names in online poker, you talk about ACR, Ignition, and what's the last one? ACR, Ignition. I guess Bet Online is kind of big in global poker. Like those are like the bigger
Chico
ones.
Network. I mean, people refer to it as the
Yeah.
Chico because you got sports betting, bet online. They're what they have like 7 different skins, but yeah, the Chico Network's
Hmm.
incredibly soft, and everyone kind of knows about it now. So
Yeah.
the word got out that this is a good site to play on.
Yeah. I think that like all those sites are doing like they're doing all right, but none of them are, absolutely crushing it. Like I said, like no one gets I don't get like really super fired up to play online. You know what I mean? Like that like I feel like obviously this is me just like assuming things, but like I feel like if I was back in the day where, Full Tilt was a thing, I'd be fired up to get on my laptop and play poker. You know what I mean? I'm like
That
fired
that
up.
that
I'm like,
was what
let's
it was
go.
like. That's exactly what it was like. I would literally like
Yeah.
call out of work. If there was like a big, they used to have a series called F Tops. It was the Full Tilt online poker series. Winning an F Tops, it got you a custom avatar, which everybody wanted. It was like it depended on what part of the series it was, but there'd be like a little football guy or a little baseball guy or whatever, and it had like a custom jersey on your avatar, like it was gold, and it had the word F Tops champion on. Like it was sick, and everybody wanted
Yeah.
that. It's like forget how insane the money was, because like we're
Yeah.
talking very regularly, 100K guarantee would balloon to 500K. So
Yeah.
first place was almost 100K just from that. And I mean, they're small buy-ins. We're talking 25, 30, $45 buy-ins. You could win 100 grand. I mean, it was stupid. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, but people would get I would literally just, okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going out. I clear my calendar because I'm playing in F tops. Like this was the time. It was a special time. And it was,
Yeah.
unfortunately it ended miserably for a lot of people, But yeah, Ignition and ACR, they don't quite have that feel yet. And the argument too is they're unregulated, right? Like I don't want to get too into it, but you know what? Fuck it. We are now because the bot situation is crippling the online economy. There's people who are not only recognizing that there's bots and playing against them, but there's nothing really truly being done about it. And I think until that gets cleaned up, those sites aren't going to reach their full potential. Do a lot of people play on them and do well? Absolutely. I'm one of them. I'm crushing Ignition right now, just to be completely honest with you. But I don't play cash games. And a lot of people miss the old online cash games. That used to be how everyone made their money. You didn't really play as many tournaments because it's, you're rolling the dice. There's variance. You lose more than you win, kind of thing. Maybe you're cashing 30% of the time, 35 if you're really really good. But cash, it's, as you know, playing live, it's consistent. There's not as much variance. You can just reload if you're running into a bad run or running bad, and so I feel like the future for the game has to be clean up the sites, clean up the bots, and then go really heavy on the marketing. I'm surprised that the World Series was sponsored by GTO Wiz. It's like, okay, you want to have a rule where you can't use this at the table, but the whole event is sponsored by that tool that's banned at the table. Like, please, someone explain that and make sense to me, because that makes zero sense. But the old days, it used to be all the online sites, or it
Yeah.
was a beer. It was like, hey, Milwaukee's Best or Coors Light or whatever. It's like, I miss those days. The Jack Link's beef jerky all in moment, right? Like those were awesome, and it's like, I never ate Jack Link's, but it made me want some, so it was a different time. And I think, to your point, like it's cool that we have those sites and that we can play on them and cash out and make a little money, but the player pools aren't where they should be. We don't have hundreds of thousands of people on one site. It's like maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000 people, so it's cool that sites are trying to change that, like a Clubs Poker. It's like, hey, we're trying to be a social kind of platform, and they're recruiting players. Obviously, it's like, hey, bring in more players. I'm all for that. It's just,
Yeah.
hopefully they can rise to a level where they become a choice, like a main choice for people, and grow from there and do it the right way, so
Yeah.
that's my hope. Okay, I gotta ask, because I'm gonna be asking this on every interview I do. If you're stuck on a desert island and you can only bring 3 things with you, what would they be? And they can't be a phone and they can't be the internet. So what would those 3 things be?
Desert. Well, the first thing I'd bring is like a big ass jug of water. Big ass jug of
the,
water.
the most obvious. I didn't think you would go that obvious. That's so
Big
practical and
ass jug of
obvious.
water.
Like
Yeah. Big ass
drinkable
jug of
water.
water. And then I think like a fishing rod, honestly, like a fishing rod. Like I like I used to go fishing a lot and I still do.
I
So
love that.
I feel like I would be able to catch some fish out there and cook it up.
Yeah.
What would be the last thing? Fishing rod. Like you got to have some sort of weapon, right? Like some sort of weapon on that island.
Like a
So,
knife or like a sword
yeah, I
or a
don't know, like
spear or something.
yeah, I'd probably go with a spear. I feel like a spear would be a solid choice for weaponry.
So that's your 3 choices. A big jug of water. Let's say it's one of those really big sparklets ones. Aren't those like 4 or 5 gallons? We'll say a 4 or 5 gallon sparklets jug. What was the second thing you said?
Fishing rod, fishing
Fishing
rod.
rod. Fishing rod. See, that's smart. See, okay, guys, like this is a smart player because he's thinking practical. Like, don't bring a DVD player. Like, what? You can't eat a DVD player. What are you gonna do? Right? You're gonna dehydrate and die. You have a fishing rod. You have some water. You could probably live there for quite a while with those tools.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty
I'm
brilliant.
I'm I'm working on survival.
Yeah. Hey, aren't we all? I mean, that's what tournament poker is for the first 20 levels. You're just trying to survive
Yeah,
all the freaking maniac all ins, especially if it's a
yeah.
rebuy. Um,
Landmines.
yeah. So I saw you were at the World Series of Poker. Was that your first World Series of Poker, or did you play in it before? It was your first series. What would you
Yeah.
say? Have you played any WPT events before?
So I've never played any WPT events. I've only played like there's been like some smaller series that came through Sacramento when I was there.
Mhm.
So aside from like the World Series summer, I played like a WSOP circuit series and then like a run good series. So no WPTs or anything like that yet.
The only reason I bring that up is because, as you probably have seen the news, the World Series sold to GG Poker, which is,
Hmm.
I think, if you want to say who's the top site right now, they're probably the top
Yeah,
site worldwide. GG
yeah,
Poker's kind of
yeah,
taken over.
yeah.
Unfortunately, they're doing exactly
We
what Poker
can't.
Stars did. They're over raking players. They're not really, I like that they don't allow HUDs and trackers and things, but at the same time, it's like, is that really that big of a deal? Like, are they regulating bots? Are they, they haven't really said anything about it. But they're the top dog, right? Now
Yeah.
they own the biggest poker series on the planet. And my worry is that they're going to try and bring it more online. And even like part of the deal was that they're going to keep it in Vegas for 20 years. I go, what does that mean? Like it should be in Vegas forever. There is no World Series of Poker without Las Vegas. Okay, that makes,
Yeah.
if they think about moving it to like Europe, or like they have their own series. It's called World Series of Poker Europe. Like, okay, cool. You get your own series. The Paradise World Series, that looks cool. Cool. But go in the Bahamas during wintertime when, everything's freezing to death. Awesome. But you can't move the main event. You can't move the Goliath. You can't move these now stapled events to another, even if it was another state. Like even if they're like, hey, we're coming to LA, we're gonna do the World Series of California. Go fuck yourself. Like I don't want that here. Like the whole point is that you get to go to Vegas and it's all of the activities that are available in Vegas outside of the World Series, right? It's not just the fact that you have this insane amount of players in one place. It's the fact that it's the whole atmosphere of everyone converging into this really cool, nutty space for 7 weeks. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? When you heard the news, what immediately came to mind?
Yeah, I mean, kind of as you mentioned, like I was like for GG poker, like I've known that that's like the top dog for like a very long time, but obviously like us US, we don't get we can't play on GG. Like I know there's guys out there VPN and stuff like that, but at least for me, obviously like
What?
I can't. Like I'm like I know I'm not playing on GG, so like initially I thought that maybe they might be able to like figure out a way to like start legalizing GG poker in US. That was like the first thought that crossed my mind. I was like, like well, if they're buying out the World Series, they must be like attempting to tap into the US market in some other way, right? And
mm.
especially WSOP has WSOP online and everything. So like in some way, like I was a little bit excited for online poker. Like as I was mentioning, like maybe if we get the top dog back in the States, who knows what could happen to online poker type of thing. So that's kind of what I thought initially. I didn't really have too much. Honestly, I wasn't paying attention like crazily to like what they had planned or anything like that. So like for you telling me that they were trying to move the World Series from Vegas, that's news to me. Like this is the first time I
Well,
heard about that. I didn't
it
even
was
know.
just there was an agreement in place that said they were going to keep it in Vegas for at least 20 years.
Oh,
I'm
oh.
but like that to me implies, well, they were in the negotiation process. They were probably saying we'd like to tour with the World Series. Like we want to make it a tour every year.
Hmm.
I don't like that. Like it's like when
Yeah,
they move the Super Bowl every year. It's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but like I heard that the one in Vegas, the Super Bowl this last year was the most successful Super Bowl they've ever had. Why would you do it anywhere else? Just do it in Vegas every year. Like you can bet on it. You're in the town. Like it's brilliant. But to your point, yeah, if you weren't totally aware, I mean, it's that's my fear. It's like they're going to try and
yeah,
create this global tour, and I get it. It's going to grow the game, and they may have the right intentions behind it, but there's no World
yeah,
Series without Vegas. It just doesn't make any
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I don't, yeah, like, I mean, I wouldn't ever want, the World Series to leave Vegas either. Like, I think that that's just tradition, you know what I mean? And you don't really fuck with tradition like that. So, um, that's at least my spiel on that. I think that from like a perspective of like what could happen with GG, I really think the possibilities are a little bit endless because obviously GG is such like a powerful force in the poker
Yeah.
community right now, and like online poker, they're like the ones that are actually like doing good with online poker, at least from what I can see. Um, and I like the fact that they don't allow HUDs. I like the fact that everybody like has the built-in HUD and stuff. Because like some people can't even figure out how to use a HUD, right? Like there's not
It's
a lot of
again,
people that,
what good is it if you don't know how to use it?
yeah, exactly. So I think it kind of helps level the playing fields. And obviously, like we have the bot problem, and that's been a known thing. I think it's like the worst on ACRs from my understanding, anyways. But like like at least what I can attest to for GG is like I know a lot of their ambassadors. I've seen a lot of their ambassadors, and I know that their ambassadors are like really working hard to grow the game as well. Like I don't know, like Kevin Martin, for example. Like I know
Yep.
he's really good for the game. He streams a lot, and yeah, there's just a lot of I think possibilities with GG that could be good, good outcomes that could potentially come out of it. I don't know if like good outcomes will, but at least the fact that they're working on tapping into the U.S. market could mean potential for the online poker world for the U.S.
I didn't even think about that when you brought up that maybe they're trying to tap into the US market. I think that really does benefit everybody. If they really are, if that's their intention of really trying to drive and make it a like the path towards legalization, then this
Yeah,
was the best move ever, because it took someone as big and powerful as they are to buy something as incredible of a brand as the World Series is, um, to make it legal. Then yeah, I'm all for it.
yeah,
I know how businesses work. I know how corporations work. When Poker Stars sold to that investment company, they turned to absolute dog shit very quickly.
yeah,
And now you don't hear Poker Stars anymore. Like they're still around. They
yeah,
still have sponsored players, but like I couldn't name a single one of their pros. I don't know any,
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? They all went online. They don't even sponsor live players anymore. So when
yeah,
Daniel Negreanu left, it's like that whole place just turned into a funeral home. Where did he go? He went to GG because he saw the future. He saw what they were
yeah,
trying to do and obviously jumped on board with that. And I mean, there's not a better spokesperson for anything than Daniel Negreanu. That guy can sell me ketchup with white gloves. You know what I mean? Like he is so good at representing stuff. I don't know if you watch his vlogs, but it's funny how over time his enthusiasm started kind of drop when he was struggling and like losing tons of money, and then the famous blow up. He had that crazy blow up on a fan who tried to take his picture right after busting. He apologized later for it, but it's like, dude, you have thousands of people, possibly millions of people following you on a regular basis. That's not a good look, dude. Like, that is not growing the game. You're freaking out on a guy who's just trying to take your picture. Okay, yeah, that fan had terrible timing, but he didn't know. He didn't know you just busted from a tournament. Like, that's part of fame. That's, you get approached. And I don't have like this giant following, but when I was regularly posting and doing commentary and live, like when I'd go to Vegas during World Series, I couldn't tell you how many times I'd get stopped for videos. Hey, poker tip of the day, Chris. It was like, and people thought I was bigger than I was. I was like with some friends, and they're like, dude, who are you? Like, how does everybody know who you are out here? And I just
yeah,
happened to go out there for a bachelor party for a friend of mine, and everybody knew me. Like I was getting stopped. I would be at least once every like 45 minutes to an hour. And they're like, dude, this is stupid. Like, what's going on? Because they didn't know about my other page. And I was like, oh, it's a poker thing. And they're like, what? What? So it was kind of embarrassing. I can't imagine when you're an actual like representative, you're an ambassador of a site, and you're touring around, you're doing podcasts and TV shows and interviews and vlogs and all, and like everybody knows who you are. They're going to want a piece of you constantly. I very much see that with you for sure. Like you're building this kind of rise to fame. I don't know if you guys see it, but I've seen this journey. I've seen this trajectory before with some crushers. And I mean, just keep posting content. I mean, I'm going to share your page here, guys. If you're not following Global Kenny Poker here, okay, this is. Let me see if I can learn how to do this. This is my first time sharing my screen, guys. There is so much content on here. It's insane. Okay. But I want to see if I can play a video. This is your story, like that 1 year. Like this has got me fired up. When I watched this,
yeah,
I think I reached out to you right after. I was like, I got to get Kenny on this podcast. Like I have to get him Like, people need to hear this story. Let me see if this works, if there's sound here. I don't even know how to hit play.
I don't think that one's a video.
Oh, it
That
wasn't a
one's a
video. I thought this was a
video.
video.
There is a video. If you go to my reels, click on the reels thing at the top. I think I know what video you're talking about. If you just keep scrolling down, you
Like,
should
it got
find
me
it somewhere.
so fired up, and I was like, oh, shit.
It might be. I think yeah, it's even further down. It's the one where I decided where I chose to basically quit my job. Right? I think
Oh, man.
that's
Yeah,
the
where
one that
is
you're
that?
talking about.
Dang, I didn't
I
realize how
think
many
maybe
reels.
no. I think
Dude, you're fine. I got to step my game up. Look at your content. Like, so many pieces of
yeah.
content. Holy
No,
shit.
definitely.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. When I like I've kind of chilled out a little bit, at least over the past few months. Like I still post a lot, but don't get me wrong. But like I think especially when you're first starting out, like just if you're cranking out video after video after video, like that's the way to do it,
That is
man.
the way
Like
to do it for sure. Here, I'm going to play this one. This is one that almost got me low key upset because I was like, how to exploit low stakes players. Nobody needs to know that. Nobody else needs to know this
yeah.
if they're going to start using it against me. Um, get sound.
Guys, but today I'm going to talk about how to exploit low stakes live poker players. If you play low stakes poker, forget about GTO, forget about theory. This strategy alone could make you tens of thousands of dollars down the line. Almost all low stakes players are extremely unbalanced. This means they lean way too far in one direction or the other. Let's take pre-flop, for example. Most low stakes players are either way too loose and raise way too many hands, call way too many hands pre, or they're just way too nitty. They raise way too few hands, they call way too few hands, they don't 3-bet enough. The first thing that you need to do is identify which players are raising too much and which players are playing too nitty. Against players that are raising too much, we are going to start 3-betting them linearly. This just means we're going to select a wide variety of hands to start 3-betting them with. We generally want to have hands that are going to perform pretty well post-flop as well. We just basically want to widen our 3-betting range against this type of player so that we can play more pots versus them in position. Even a hand like King Queen off or Ace Jack off is going to perform very well against their RFI range. Now against the Nit, we want to 3-bet an extremely polarized range. We're going to use our absolute nuts that we want to get it in with them, aces, kings, ace, king suited, things like that, and also sprinkle in a few bluffs. I cannot believe I'm going to be...
It's like, I'm so pumped on that. But at the same time, I was like, he's using some language I don't even want these players to know about. Like, they don't need to know what an RFI is. Like like they're already limping at an alarming rate. I want to keep them limping at an alarming rate. No, that's awesome. Like, I mean, that's the kind of content though that I just was not expecting. And when you started posting that, I was pretty pumped because I was like, here's a guy who's actively crushing the game, and you're not giving bullshit advice like, oh, you should raise aces pre-flop. It's like, no shit. Like, we all know this, right? But you started getting into like real actionable stuff. And I think as a whole, super valuable. Like, people are going to learn a lot from that. So guys, if you're not following Kenny at Global Kenny Poker, it's well worth your time. He's got obviously a shit ton of videos to go through, and keep the content coming, my brother, because that is awesome. That is dope.
For
So.
sure.
Last but not least here, we got a few minutes here. What I need your overall kind of opinion on solvers or RTA at the table. Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you think that needs to be regulated? What do you think of the final table of the World Series main event? How do you think that should have been handled?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for sure against it. Like, I mean, solvers, RTA, that's the point of the game is to like play the game and play the game with your mind, you know what I'm saying? Not with a computer. So like, I'm all for studying, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think people should go out and study as much as they can, look at solvers, get better at the game. But like, I mean, it's just like anything else. You show up to the casino, you show up, like it could even be a cash game, like still like RTA should not be allowed.
Yeah.
It's like you show up and it's game time and you just gotta trust that you prepared well enough. You know what I'm saying? Trust in your own abilities, that you prepared well enough to play as good as possible once it comes game time. And regarding like the Jonathan Tamayo situation with the final table, I actually kind of feel bad because I feel like it's more so on his coaches than on him in a way. Like I feel bad because like now like a lot of people are talking bad about him on the internet, and his win is kind of like, I mean, obviously it's still a win, but like people are bashing it and like discrediting it almost. But like in reality, his coach is the one that should have gotten the clarification, right? His coach is the one that should have been like, okay, to the floor, like, am I allowed to use this solver or not, right? Am I allowed to, tell my student, Jonathan, like what the solver is saying and things like that. And I think that was his own coach's fault, because he's the one that kind of tarnished the name, because he was the one using the solver. He was the one relaying that information. Like, honestly, that guy, I know he's like a really solid player and everything. He should have, like, I mean, if he just never pulled out his laptop, he could have probably given him the same information anyways. Like, I don't know what was such a big deal about like him pulling out the laptop. So like, I think it kind of hurts me to like see this happen, because obviously it's terrible for the game. I think, it's like no one wants to see people use a solver at the table. Like, it's not a good look, however you look at it. It's a terrible look for the game. But I do honestly kind of feel bad for Jonathan Tamayo, because I think it's largely not his fault. I think it's his coach's fault, honestly, because he was the one that was blatantly using it. He was the one giving the information. Obviously, like, I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe Jonathan Tamayo was the one telling him to like use the solver and like help him out or whatever. But I mean, it was, at the end of the day, it was the coach that actually was using it, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't even him that was using it. So I think it's his coach's fault, and the coach should have like went up to the floor and been like, okay, look, is this allowed or is this not allowed? Gotten clarification, right? Because I think like what he was trying to say was that he didn't know that it wasn't allowed or something, right? Like, I think that was like his argument, that he
That's
didn't
the
know.
statement. That's the statement officially right now. Which, yeah,
Yeah.
I have some opinions on it, but it's like, it's kind of like when you're speeding and then you get caught for speeding, you're like, I didn't know that was the speed limit. I don't know. It's like, what do they say? Ignorance doesn't excuse you from breaking the law. So it's like
Exactly.
that's what's
Yeah,
rough.
I think that's pretty much how I see it. Like, it's just like, even if, like, first of all, you shouldn't think that's okay in the first place, but even if you did think that maybe it was okay, like, at least get clarification from
Yeah.
somebody. You know what I'm saying? That it is okay. And then, and if the floor at some point said something that it's okay, then sure, do your thing. It's still a terrible look for the game, but whatever. But like, I think the issue here was there wasn't clarification. He never got clarification from before. And then the second thing is like, I think the WSOP just needs to be more fucking strict about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they just need to like put it blatant in the rule books. Like, if you get caught using a solver at the poker table or like around the poker table or whatever, like, you're just DQ'd from the tournament, period. You lose your buy-in. Something harsh enough to like where people will really take this rule seriously, right? Because like, I think maybe people like have heard, that, okay, like, I shouldn't be using a solver at the table, but like, they're still not scared enough to like pull it out just like
Right.
for a quick peek every now and then and be like, because they're like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I have to sit out a round or something. Like, I don't know, like, just like, it's not a big penalty, you know what I'm saying,
No.
for using it. So, and I mean, you're cheating is what you're doing. So it should be a much bigger penalty than just like having to wait around or wait in orbit. So I think first thing is, obviously, it's a terrible look. And then second thing is like, they need to be super harsh and super clear about it so that everybody is like scared. Basically, like, everybody should be scared as shit to pull out their solver out, because they know like the minute they do it, they're fucking out. You know what I'm saying? Like, if like, there's plenty of rules in this world. Yeah. Like, if any time there's like a really harsh penalty for anything, people start to take the rule really seriously. You know what I'm saying? But whenever there's no penalty, or like a very low penalty for doing something, people don't take it seriously. So you just up the penalty and you just say, okay, look, you're either banned from the tournament or whatever. Like you just have to forfeit your buy-in type of thing, and then people are going to start, taking that rule really seriously. I feel like.
I agree 100%. I think, and hopefully that's on their top of their list of how do we clarify this for players. I think it should be an instant DQ. I think it's hit the showers, we collecting your chips, you're out.
Yeah,
There's some people I've spoken with, players I respect that have played a lot of events, and their opinion is start with a warning, right? A 2-round penalty. If they get caught a second time, then they get DQ'd, and then if it happens a third time, now we're talking potential lifetime ban. I like that, but again, it's like if you're telling me, let's say we're in a really important spot in the tournament, and it's my first written warning, that I don't think that's harsh enough. If especially when you're talking about ICM, like last 3-4 tables, final table, major ICM pressure, you're talking about life-changing money. I don't think that's harsh enough. I think you need to remove that player's chips. You need to DQ them from the tournament, and then have them really think about if they ever want to do that again. And that's the only way to really handle it, right? We don't, when people steal from a bank, we don't just let them go the next day, right? They go away to prison for a really long time. And I think that should be the same thing. They should get a DQ, and then they should be banned from, let's say, 5 events or 6 events, like something really strict. So I'm all for that. I agree with that 100%. I think there's just not enough penalty for it. And the fact that the World Series has not said a damn thing about it is probably the most disappointing part of this whole deal. It's not like this hasn't been front page news for weeks. I mean, both the runner-up, Griff, and Tamayo, the winner, have gone on multiple shows, multiple podcasts, and explained themselves publicly. Why hasn't the World Series of Poker done the same? There needs to be a statement, and it needs to happen now. So if the World Series, anyone from the World Series ever picks up this episode and are gotten this far, do your fucking job, guys. Like, the players need to know what the rule is, because you can't just say it and not enforce it. It makes 0 sense. So awesome. Well, any last things you want to plug? Any other sites, brands? This is your platform.
No, it was a pleasure though. I appreciate you having me on. I actually heard that from my brother that he'll be a guest at some point as well.
Yes.
So I'm excited to watch that episode as well.
We're trying to line up the calendars. I mean, like I said, you're one half of the global team, and I love that name. I thought that when I first heard that, I thought you guys were sponsored by Global Poker. I was like, Global Kenny, Global Danny, like, whoa, who are, like, I've never seen these guys before. What is this? We'll get in. We'll have a follow-up episode. We'll get into that story and kind of find out, more along the journey, and hopefully you're posting more results, getting that graph up, and we'll catch you again soon, man. I appreciate you jumping on. This was awesome.
Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Tune into the next one. I don't have a guest totally lined up yet, but I'll have more solo episodes like I had before. And signing out. The Cold Deck. Talk soon.